When my daughter-in-law stood up at her wedding reception and told everyone I was the reason she almost didn't marry my son, I felt my heart stop. The entire room went silent. 200 people turned to look at me. I was sitting at the family table, right near the head table where the bride and groom sat. I was wearing the dress she had helped me pick out just 3 weeks earlier. It was lavender, soft and elegant. My hands were folded in my lap. I remember looking down at them and noticing they were shaking. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to say something. I wanted to defend myself, but I didn't. I just sat there, frozen, while she continued talking into the microphone. Her voice was steady and clear. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shouting. She was calm. And somehow that made it worse. I had spent months helping to plan this wedding. I had sewn the napkins by hand, each one carefully hemmed and pressed. I had arranged the flowers in the morning while everyone else was getting ready. I had baked cookies for the welcome bags. I had addressed envelopes. I had made phone calls. I had smiled through every fitting, every rehearsal, every family dinner. I thought I was doing everything right. I thought I was being the kind of mother-in-law every bride would want. Supportive, kind, helpful, quiet when I needed to be. But as I sat there listening to her words echo through the reception hall, I realized I had been wrong about everything. And the worst part was, I didn't even know what I had done. My son was standing next to her at the head table. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking down at his plate. His jaw was tight. I could see the tension in his shoulders even from across the room. He didn't stop her. He didn't defend me. He just sat there, silent, while his new wife told everyone that I had tried to control their relationship, that I had made her feel unwelcome, that I had questioned whether she was good enough for him. None of it was true. At least, I didn't think it was. But in that moment, with everyone staring at me, I started to doubt myself. Maybe I had said something wrong. Maybe I had done something I didn't remember. Maybe I was the problem and I just couldn't see it. I wanted to leave. I wanted to walk out of that reception hall and never come back. But I couldn't move. My legs felt like they were made of stone. My sister was sitting next to me. She reached over and squeezed my hand under the table. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. I could feel her support, and it was the only thing keeping me together. The music had stopped. The guests were whispering to each other. Some were looking at me with pity. Others were looking away, embarrassed. And my daughter-in-law was still talking. She was telling them about boundaries, about respect, about how she had almost called off the wedding because of me. And all I could think was, how did we get here? How did a day that was supposed to be filled with joy and celebration turn into this nightmare? I kept thinking about all the years I had spent raising my son alone, all the sacrifices I had made, all the times I had put his needs before my own. I had worked 2 jobs to give him a good life. I had saved every penny so he could go to college. I had cheered him on at every milestone. And this was how it ended? With his wife publicly humiliating me in front of everyone we knew? I felt like my heart was being ripped out of my chest. I felt like I was drowning, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Margaret. I am 62 years old. I have lived in the same small town my entire life. I was born here. I went to school here. I fell in love here. I married my husband Robert when I was 23 years old. We had a small wedding in the local church, nothing fancy, just family and close friends. Robert was a good man. He was tall and strong, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He worked as a mechanic. He was good with his hands. He could fix anything.
He wasn't the kind of man who talked about his feelings much. He showed his love through actions, not words. And I was okay with that. I understood him. We had one child together, a son. His name is Daniel. He was born 2 years after we got married, on a cold November morning. I remember holding him in my arms for the first time and feeling like my whole world had changed. He was so tiny, so perfect, so fragile. From the moment I looked into his eyes, I knew he was my whole world. Robert loved him too, of course, but Robert wasn't very involved in the day-to-day care. He worked long hours. He came home tired. He played with Daniel on weekends, but most of the time it was just me and the baby. And I didn't mind. I loved being a mother. I loved every moment of it. When Daniel was only 8 years old, everything changed. Robert died in a car accident. It was sudden and unexpected. One day he was here, kissing me goodbye as he left for work, and the next day he was gone. I got the call in the middle of the afternoon. A police officer came to my door. I remember the look on his face. I knew before he even said the words. Robert's truck had been hit by a drunk driver on the highway. He died instantly. They said he didn't suffer, but I suffered. Daniel suffered. Our whole world fell apart in an instant. After that, it was just me and Daniel. I was 29 years old, a widow with a young son to raise. I didn't have a college degree. I didn't have any special skills, but I had determination. I had love, and I had my son. I got a job cleaning houses during the day. Then I got another job working nights at a diner. I barely slept. I was exhausted all the time. But I kept going because I had to, because Daniel needed me, because I wasn't going to let him grow up feeling like he had lost both parents.
Older woman telling her story. Daniel was a quiet child. He was smart, he was kind, he was thoughtful. He never gave me any trouble. He did his homework without being asked. He helped around the house. He seemed to understand, even at a young age, that we only had each other. He never complained about not having the things other kids had. He never asked for expensive toys or fancy vacations. He was grateful for what we had, and that made me love him even more. I didn't date after Robert died. I didn't have the time, and honestly, I didn't have the interest. A few men asked me out over the years, but I always said no. Daniel was enough for me. I poured all my love, all my energy, all my hope into raising him. I wanted him to have a good life. I wanted him to be happy. I wanted him to know that no matter what happened, I would always be there for him. I would never let him down. I would never abandon him. He was my purpose, my reason for getting up every morning. When Daniel was in high school, he started to excel. He was good at math and science. His teachers told me he had potential. They told me he could go to college if he worked hard. I encouraged him every step of the way. I helped him with his applications. I drove him to campus visits. I filled out financial aid forms late into the night. And when he got accepted to a state university on a scholarship, I cried tears of joy. I was so proud of him, so incredibly proud. When Daniel went to college, I felt a strange mix of emotions. I was proud of him for getting that scholarship. He was going to study engineering. He was going to make something of himself. But I was also terrified, not because I didn't trust him, but because I knew that once he left, things would never be the same. And I was right. He came home less and less. At first, he came home every weekend. Then it was every other weekend. Then once a month. Then only on holidays. He made new friends. He had new experiences.
He had a whole new life that didn't include me. And I stayed in the same small town, working the same jobs, living the same house. I was happy for him. I truly was. But I also felt a loneliness I had never felt before. During his college years, Daniel would call me once a week. We would talk for about 20 minutes. He would tell me about his classes and his friends. I would tell him about work and the weather. The conversations were pleasant, but surface level. I wanted to ask him deeper questions. I wanted to know what he was really thinking and feeling, but I didn't want to seem needy. I didn't want to be the clingy mother who couldn't let go. So I kept things light. I told him I was proud of him. I told him I missed him. And I hung up the phone, feeling both connected and distant at the same time. When Daniel graduated from college, he got a job in a city about 2 hours away. He moved into an apartment with a roommate. He started his career. He was doing well. He was independent. He was thriving. And I was genuinely happy for him. But I also felt like I was losing him, like he was drifting further and further away. And I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't know if I was even supposed to try. When Daniel was 26, he called me one evening. His voice was different, lighter, excited. There was an energy in his tone that I hadn't heard in years. He told me he had met someone. Her name was Emily. He said she was beautiful, smart, and kind. He said she made him laugh. He said he thought she might be the one. I remember feeling a rush of emotions all at once. Joy because my son had found love. Fear because I knew this meant he would be even further from me. And something else, something I didn't want to name. It felt like jealousy, but I pushed it away. I told myself I was being ridiculous. I told myself I should be grateful. My son was happy. That was all that mattered. He talked about Emily for almost an hour. He told me how they met at a coffee shop. He told me about their first date. He told me about her job as a graphic designer. He told me about her family. He told me about her hobbies. And the whole time, I listened and smiled and said all the right things. But inside, I felt a strange sadness because I realized that Daniel had a whole life now, a life that was completely separate from me. And this woman, this Emily, was going to be the most important person in his life. Not me. Not anymore. A few months later, Daniel brought Emily home to meet me. I wanted everything to be perfect. I cleaned the house from top to bottom. I scrubbed the floors. I washed the windows. I dusted every surface. I cooked his favorite meal, pot roast with carrots and potatoes. I set the table with my best dishes. I bought fresh flowers for the center of the table. I even baked an apple pie from scratch. I wanted her to like me. I wanted her to see that I was a good mother, a good person, someone she could trust and rely on, someone who would welcome her with open arms. When they arrived, I was standing at the front door, wearing my nicest dress. I had spent an hour doing my hair and makeup. I wanted to make a good impression. Daniel hugged me first. He looked happy. He looked healthy. He looked like a man, not the little boy I remembered. Then Emily stepped forward. She was tall and slim, with long dark hair that fell in waves past her shoulders. She had bright green eyes and perfect skin. She was wearing jeans and a simple white blouse. She looked effortlessly beautiful. I hugged her right away. I told her I was so happy to finally meet her. She smiled, but it was a tight smile. It didn't quite reach her eyes. I could tell she was nervous. I told myself to be patient. I told myself to give her time to warm up. Dinner was awkward. I tried my best to make conversation. I asked Emily questions about herself. Where did she grow up?
What was her family like? What did she study in college? What did she like to do in her free time? She answered politely, but her responses were short. She didn't elaborate. She didn't ask me any questions in return. She kept looking at Daniel as if she waiting for him to rescue her from the conversation. I tried to make jokes. I tried to lighten the mood. I told a funny story about Daniel when he was little. I laughed. Daniel laughed. But Emily just smiled politely and pushed her food around on her plate. After dinner, Daniel helped me with the dishes while Emily sat in the living room. I could hear her scrolling through her phone. Daniel told me not to worry. He said Emily was just shy. He said she would warm up to me once she got to know me better. He said she was nervous about making a good impression. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. I told myself it was just first meeting jitters. I told myself things would get better, but they didn't. Over the next year, every interaction with Emily felt strained. She was polite, but distant. She rarely called me, she rarely visited. When she did come over with Daniel, she stayed close to him and barely spoke to me. I tried to include her in things. I invited her to go shopping with me. I thought we could have a girls' day, just the two of us. But she said she was busy with work. I invited her to lunch. She said she had other plans. I sent her text messages just to check in, to ask how she was doing. She would respond with short, one-word answers. Good, fine, busy. I started to feel like she was avoiding me, and I didn't understand why. What had I done? What had I said? I replayed every conversation in my mind, looking for clues, but I couldn't find any. Daniel proposed to Emily on a weekend trip to the mountains. It was romantic. He had planned it all out. He took her to a beautiful overlook at sunset and got down on one knee. She said yes. He called me right after. I could hear the joy in his voice. He was so happy, so excited. He told me he couldn't wait to start planning the wedding. He told me he wanted me to be involved. He said Emily wanted that too. I was relieved. I thought maybe this was a turning point. Maybe now that we were going to be family, things would be different. Maybe she would finally let me in. The wedding planning started in early spring. The wedding was set for late summer, which gave us about 5 months to prepare. Emily's mother lived out of state and could only visit a few times, so I offered to help with whatever was needed. I wanted to be useful. I wanted to be supportive. I wanted Emily to know that she could count on me. At first, she seemed grateful. She called me one afternoon and asked if I would come with her to look at venues. I was thrilled. I thought this was a good sign. I thought we were starting to build a relationship. We visited 3 different venues in one afternoon. The first one was a barn. It was rustic and charming with exposed wooden beams and string lights. Emily seemed to like it. She took photos. She asked questions about catering and capacity. I told her I thought it was beautiful. I told her it had a warm, welcoming feel. She smiled and nodded. Older women telling her story. The second venue was a country club. It was more formal, with elegant chandeliers and marble floors. Emily didn't seem as interested in this one. She walked through quickly and didn't take many photos. The third venue was a garden. It was outdoors with rows of flowers and a stone pathway. Emily loved it. I could see it in her eyes. She stood in the middle of the garden and looked around with a dreamy expression. I told her it was perfect. I told her she would look like a princess there. She thanked me. On the drive home, Emily was quiet. I tried to make conversation. I asked her which venue she was leaning toward. She said she wasn't sure yet. She said she needed to think about it. Then I made a comment. I said, "The garden is beautiful, but I'm a little worried about the weather. What if it rains? Maybe the country club would be a safer choice." I meant it as practical advice. I meant it as something to consider. But the moment I said it, her face changed. She stiffened.
Her jaw tightened. She didn't respond. The rest of the drive was silent. When I dropped her off at her apartment, she thanked me for coming and got out of the car quickly. I sat there for a moment, confused. Had I said something wrong? That night, Daniel called me. He asked me to be careful about giving Emily advice. He said she was feeling a lot of pressure about the wedding. He said she needed to feel like it was her day, her decision. I told him I understood. I told him I didn't mean to upset her. I told him I was just trying to help. He said he knew that. He said he appreciated everything I was doing. But he asked me to let Emily take the lead. I agreed. I promised I would be more careful. But after I hung up, I felt terrible. I felt like I had already messed up. I felt like I was walking on eggshells. A few weeks later, Emily asked me to come over to her apartment. She said she wanted to show me some ideas for the table settings. I was excited. I loved decorating. I loved making things beautiful. When I arrived, she had everything laid out on her dining table. There were fabric samples, napkin rings, candles, and little name cards. It all looked lovely. She had clearly put a lot of thought into it. I told her so. I told her she had wonderful taste. She smiled and thanked me. Then she asked me what I thought about the color scheme. She had chosen soft blush pink and ivory. I told her it was elegant and timeless. I told her it would photograph beautifully. She seemed pleased. But then I made another mistake. I couldn't help myself. I suggested adding a little bit of gold to the palette. Just small touches, I said. Maybe gold flatware or gold candle holders. I thought it would add warmth. I thought it would make everything feel a little more luxurious. I thought I was being helpful. But the moment I said it, her face changed again. She stiffened. She looked over at Daniel, who was sitting on the couch across the room. He looked uncomfortable. He shifted in his seat and looked down at his phone. She turned back to me and said, very calmly, "I appreciate the suggestion, Margaret, but I've already decided on the colors. I don't want to change anything." Her tone was polite, but it was cold. There was an edge to it. I felt my stomach drop. I quickly backtracked. I told her I was sorry. I told her I didn't mean to overstep. I told her the colors were perfect as they were. She nodded, but she didn't smile. The rest of the visit was tense and awkward. I left as soon as I could. That night, Daniel called me again. This time, his tone was more serious. He said, "Mom, you need to stop offering unsolicited advice. Emily is really stressed about this wedding, and every time you suggest something, she feels like you're trying to take over." I felt like I had been slapped. I told him I wasn't trying to take over. I told him I was just trying to help. He said, "I know you think you're helping, but Emily doesn't see it that way. She needs to feel like this is her wedding, not yours." I didn't know what to say. I felt hurt. I felt misunderstood. I felt like I couldn't do anything right. I apologized again. I promised I would stop giving advice. I promised I would just do whatever Emily asked me to do and nothing more. For the next few weeks, I was very careful. I didn't offer any opinions unless Emily specifically asked for them. I tried to be supportive without being intrusive. But it was hard. I felt like I was constantly second-guessing myself. Every time I opened my mouth, I wondered if I was saying the wrong thing. I felt anxious every time my phone rang, worried that it was Daniel calling to tell me I had messed up again. One afternoon, Emily called me. She asked if I could help with the flowers. She said she wanted fresh flowers, not fake ones, and she wanted them arranged in a specific way. She said a florist was too expensive, and she thought I could do it. She showed me pictures on her phone of what she wanted: loose, natural arrangements with roses, peonies, and eucalyptus. I told her I would be happy to help. I had done flower arrangements for church events and small parties before. I wasn't a professional, but I knew how to make things look nice. She seemed relieved. She said it would save them a lot of money, and she trusted me to do a good job. I felt proud. I felt useful. I thought maybe this was my chance to prove myself to her. This was my chance to show her that I could be an asset, not a burden. I spent the next few weeks preparing. I watched YouTube videos on flower arranging. I practiced with different flowers from the grocery store. I made sure I understood exactly what Emily wanted. I took notes. I measured vases. I calculated how many stems I would need. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted Emily to walk into that reception hall and feel like it was a dream. I wanted her to be so happy that she would forget all the tension between us. I wanted her to see me as someone she could rely on. The week before the wedding, I ordered all the flowers. They arrived fresh the morning before the wedding. I spent the entire day at the reception hall arranging them. My back was aching. My hands were sore from cutting stems and stripping thorns, but I didn't care. I worked through the pain. I worked through the exhaustion. I stayed until almost 2 in the morning, making sure every centerpiece was perfect. When I finally finished, I stepped back and looked at the tables. They were beautiful, soft, romantic, elegant, exactly what Emily had wanted. I felt satisfied. I felt like I had finally done something right. The next morning was the wedding day. I woke up early, even though I had only gotten a few hours of sleep. I was too excited to rest. I got dressed in the outfit Emily and I had picked out together. It was a soft lavender dress with a matching jacket. When we had gone shopping for it, Emily had told me it looked beautiful on me. She had told me it was perfect for the mother of the groom. I had felt so happy in that moment. I had felt like we were finally connecting. I looked at myself in the mirror that morning and thought, today is going to be a good day. Today is going to be the start of something new. I arrived at the venue 2 hours before the ceremony. I wanted to make sure everything was in place. I walked into the reception hall and saw the flowers. They looked even better in the natural light. The room was filled with soft sunlight streaming through the windows. It felt magical. I took a few photos on my phone. I wanted to remember this moment. I wanted to remember the feeling of pride and accomplishment. The ceremony was beautiful. It was held in the garden Emily had fallen in love with. The weather was perfect. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. Daniel looked so handsome in his suit. He was wearing a navy blue suit with a crisp white shirt and a blush pink tie. He looked nervous as he stood at the altar waiting for Emily. And then the music started. Everyone stood up, and Emily appeared at the end of the aisle. She looked breathtaking. Her dress was simple but elegant, with lace sleeves and a flowing train. Her hair was pulled back in a soft bun with a few loose curls framing her face. She looked like a princess. I cried when I saw her. I cried because she was so beautiful. I cried because my son was all grown up. I cried because I felt both joy and loss at the same time. The ceremony was short and sweet. They exchanged vows, they exchanged rings, they kissed. Everyone clapped and cheered. I clapped too, tears streaming down my face. My sister handed me a tissue. She was sitting next to me, and she was crying too. After the ceremony, we took family photos. The photographer gathered us all together. Daniel stood in the middle. Emily stood on one side. I stood on the other. Emily's parents were there too. We all smiled for the camera. Everything seemed fine. Everything seemed perfect. I had no idea what was coming.
The reception started at 6 in the evening. Guests began arriving, dressed in their finest clothes. The reception hall looked stunning. The flowers, the lights, the table settings, everything came together beautifully. I felt proud. I felt like I had contributed something meaningful to this day. I was seated at the family table, right near the head table where Daniel and Emily would sit. My sister was with me. So were a few cousins and an aunt. Everyone was in good spirits. There was music playing softly in the background. People were laughing and chatting and taking photos. It felt like a celebration. It felt like joy. Dinner was served around 7. The caterers brought out beautiful plates of food: salad, roasted chicken, vegetables, rolls. Everything looked and smelled delicious. I barely ate, though. I was too excited. I kept looking over at Daniel and Emily. They were sitting at the head table, holding hands and whispering to each other. They looked so happy, so in love. I thought about how far we had come. I thought about all the years I had spent raising Daniel alone, all the late nights, all the early mornings, all the sacrifices, and I felt like it had all been worth it. This was his moment. This was his happiness, and I was here to witness it. After dinner, the toasts began. The best man stood up first. He was Daniel's college roommate. He told funny stories about their time in school. He talked about how Daniel was always the responsible one, the one who made sure everyone got home safely after a night out. Everyone laughed. It was a good toast. Then Emily's maid of honor stood up. She was Emily's best friend from childhood. She talked about how strong and independent Emily was. She talked about how Emily had always known what she wanted and had never settled for less. She talked about how lucky Daniel was to have found her. Everyone clapped. Then it was time for the parents to speak. Emily's father went first. He was a tall man with silver hair and a deep voice. He talked about watching his daughter grow up. He talked about how proud he was of the woman she had become. He welcomed Daniel into their family with open arms. He raised his glass and said, "To Daniel and Emily, may your love be strong and your life together be filled with happiness." Everyone clinked their glasses and took a sip. Then it was my turn to speak. I stood up, my hands shaking slightly. I was holding a small piece of paper with notes I had written down. I had practiced the speech for weeks. I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted it to be heartfelt. I wanted Daniel and Emily to know how much I loved them. I looked at them and smiled. Daniel smiled back. Emily's face was neutral. She was watching me, but I couldn't read her expression. I cleared my throat and began. I talked about the day Daniel was born. I talked about how he had changed my life. I talked about how he had always been kind and thoughtful, even as a little boy. I talked about how proud his father would have been of the man he had become. I talked about how grateful I was to Emily for loving him. I said, "Emily, I want you to know how happy I am to welcome you into our family. Daniel loves you so much, and I can see why. You are beautiful, intelligent, and strong. I am so excited to get to know you better. I hope that over the years, we can build a strong relationship. I want you to know that I will always be here for both of you, no matter what. I love you both so much." When I finished, I raised my glass. Everyone clapped. Some people wiped their eyes. I thought it went well. I thought I had done a good job. My sister leaned over and whispered, "That was beautiful, Margaret." I smiled at her. I felt relieved. I felt like maybe, just maybe, I had finally done something right. I sat down, my heart still racing from the adrenaline. But then Emily stood up. She picked up the microphone from the table. I thought she was going to thank everyone for coming. I thought she was going to say a few sweet words about the day. I thought she was going to talk about how happy she was. But she didn't. She started talking in a calm, measured tone. She said, I want to take a moment to talk about something important, something I think needs to be said. The room went quiet. People stopped eating. They stopped talking. They turned to look at her. I felt a small sense of unease, but I told myself it was nothing. She continued, planning this wedding has been one of the most stressful experiences of my life. Not because of the logistics or the budget or the details, but because of the people involved. My heart started to beat faster. I glanced at Daniel. He was looking down at his plate. His jaw was tight. Emily continued, I believe in setting boundaries. I believe in standing up for myself, and I believe that respect is a two-way street. Over the past few months, I have felt pressured. I have felt judged. I have felt like my choices weren't good enough. I have felt like I was constantly being second-guessed. She paused. The room was completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. She looked in my direction, not directly at me, but close enough that everyone knew. I want to be clear about something, she said. This is my marriage. This is my life, and I will not allow anyone, no matter who they are, to make me feel small or unworthy, not even my mother-in-law. The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just sat there staring at her. My hands were gripping the edge of the table. My sister grabbed my hand under the table and squeezed it tightly. I could feel her shaking. Or maybe I was the one shaking. I couldn't tell. Emily kept talking. Planning this wedding has been one of the most stressful experiences of my life. Not because of the logistics or the budget or the details, but because of the people involved. I believe in setting boundaries, and I believe in standing up for myself, and I believe that respect is a two-way street. Over the past few months, I have felt pressured. I have felt judged. I have felt like my choices weren't good enough. I have felt like I was constantly being second-guessed. She paused. The room was completely silent. Then she looked at Daniel, her new husband, and said with a small smile, I almost called off this wedding. Not because I don't love Daniel, I love him more than anything, but because I wasn't sure I could handle the pressure. I wasn't sure I could be myself in a family that didn't respect my boundaries. But Daniel and I had long conversations. We worked through it, and we decided that we were strong enough to set those boundaries ourselves. So here we are. And I want everyone here to understand that moving forward, Daniel and I will make our own decisions. We will live our own lives, and we will not tolerate interference, no matter how well-intentioned it may be. She looked around the room. Some people were nodding. Some people looked uncomfortable. Some people were looking at me. I wanted to disappear. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. Emily finally sat down. There was scattered, awkward applause, but most people just sat there in stunned silence. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience, like I was watching this happen to someone else. My sister leaned over and whispered, "Let's go. Let's just leave." But I couldn't. I was frozen. I was trapped in my chair, in my shame, in my humiliation. The DJ started playing music again, trying to move things along. People slowly started talking again, but the energy in the room had shifted. It was tense. It was uncomfortable. A few people came over to me and asked if I was okay. I nodded and forced a smile. I said I was fine, but I wasn't fine. I was falling apart inside. I watched as Daniel and Emily stood up for their first dance. They swayed to a slow song, holding each other close. They looked happy. They looked like nothing had happened. And that hurt more than anything because it meant that what Emily had said, she had meant. And Daniel had let her say it. He hadn't stopped her. He hadn't defended me. He had just sat there and let her humiliate me in front of everyone. The rest of the reception was a blur. I watched them cut the cake. I watched them dance with their parents. I watched people laugh and drink and celebrate. But I felt like a ghost. Like I was there, but not really there. Like I didn't belong. When people tried to talk to me, I smiled and nodded, but I don't remember what I said. I don't remember what they said. I was numb. When the reception finally ended, I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I just grabbed my purse and walked out. My sister followed me. She drove me home in silence. When we got to my house, she walked me inside and sat with me on the couch. She held my hand. She told me she was sorry. She told me Emily was wrong to do that. She told me I didn't deserve it. But I couldn't respond. I just sat there, staring at the wall, replaying the entire night in my mind. After my sister left, I went to my bedroom. I lay down on my bed, still in my lavender dress. I stared at the ceiling, and I cried. I cried harder than I had cried in years. I cried for myself. I cried for Daniel. I cried for the relationship I thought I was building with Emily. I cried because I felt like I had lost everything, and I didn't know how to get it back. The days after the wedding were the hardest of my life. I didn't hear from Daniel. He didn't call. He didn't text. He didn't stop by. It was like I had disappeared from his life. I kept checking my phone, hoping to see his name on the screen, but there was nothing, just silence. I didn't know if he was angry with me. I didn't know if he was embarrassed. I didn't know if he even cared, and that hurt more than anything. I replayed that night over and over in my mind. I went through every conversation I had ever had with Emily, every text message, every phone call, every interaction. I looked for clues. I looked for mistakes. And maybe I found a few. Maybe I had been too eager. Maybe I had offered too many opinions. Maybe I had pushed too hard to be involved. But did that justify what she did? Did that justify humiliating me in front of everyone I loved? I didn't know. I was too hurt to think clearly. I stopped going to church. I couldn't face people. I knew they had all heard about what happened. I knew they were all talking about it. I could imagine the whispers. Did you share what happened at Daniel's wedding? His mother-in-law called her out in front of everyone. How embarrassing. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle the pity. I couldn't handle the judgment. So I stayed home. I stopped answering calls from friends. When they called to check on me, I let it go to voicemail. When they left messages asking if I was okay, I didn't respond. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to relive that night. I just wanted to be alone with my pain. My sister was the only person I allowed in. She came over every day. She brought me food, even though I barely ate. She sat with me on the couch, even when I didn't want to talk. She didn't push me. She didn't try to fix things. She just sat there, holding my hand, letting me know I wasn't alone. And honestly, she was the only reason I got through those first few weeks. I lost weight. I wasn't sleeping.
I would lie in bed at night staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I kept asking myself the same questions over and over. What did I do wrong? How did I become the villain in this story? When did Emily start seeing me as the enemy? I had only wanted to be close to them. I had only wanted to be part of their lives. I had only wanted to be a good mother-in-law. But somehow, I had become the problem. I put on a baseball cap and sunglasses, hoping no one would recognize me. But of course, someone did. It was a woman from church. She came up to me in the produce section and touched my arm. "Margaret," she said softly, "I heard what happened at the wedding. I'm so sorry. That must have been so hard for you." I wanted to run. I wanted to drop my basket and leave, but I forced myself to smile. "I'm fine," I said. "It was just a misunderstanding." She looked at me with those pitying eyes. "If you ever need to talk," she said, "I'm here." I thanked her and quickly walked away. I abandoned my shopping basket and left the store. I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried. I couldn't even go to the grocery store without being reminded of my humiliation. 1 month after the wedding, I finally heard from Daniel. It was a text message, short and simple. "Mom, we need to talk. Can I come over?" I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to tell him no. Part of me was still so angry and hurt that I didn't know if I could face him. But he was my son. He was my only child. And despite everything, I loved him. So after a few hours, I texted back, "Yes, come over tomorrow evening." The next day, I cleaned the house, I showered, I put on clean clothes. I wanted to look like I was doing okay, even though I wasn't. When Daniel arrived, I opened the door and saw him standing there. He looked tired. His eyes were red and puffy, like he hadn't been sleeping either. He looked older somehow, like the weight of everything had aged him. We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. Then he stepped forward and hugged me. It was a long, tight hug, the kind of hug where you hold on because you're afraid to let go. I hugged him back, and in that moment, I felt a tiny bit of the hurt begin to ease. We sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where we had eaten countless meals together, the same table where he had done his homework as a child, the same table where we had talked about his dreams and his fears. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The silence was heavy. Finally, Daniel broke it. "I'm sorry, Mom." His voice was quiet and strained. I looked at him. His eyes were filled with tears. "I should have stopped her," he continued. "I should have said something. I should have defended you. But I didn't, and I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry." I felt my own tears start to fall. I had been waiting to hear those words. I had been waiting for him to acknowledge what had happened. But now that he was saying it, I didn't feel the relief I expected. I just felt sad. Sad that we were in this situation. Sad that his wedding day had ended this way. sad that our relationship had been damaged.
She felt like everyone had opinions about what she should do, and she felt like you, in particular, were pushing your ideas on her. I felt defensive. I was just trying to help, I said. I was just trying to be supportive. Daniel nodded. I know, Mom. I know that's what you were trying to do, but Emily didn't see it that way. She saw it as interference. She saw it as you trying to control things. But I wasn't trying to control anything, I said, my voice rising. I was doing what she asked me to do. I made the flowers. I helped with the planning. I did everything she wanted. Daniel reached across the table and took my hand. I know, Mom, he said gently, but sometimes, even when we think we're helping, we can make people feel smothered. Emily grew up with a very controlling mother, and when you started offering suggestions and advice, it triggered something in her. She started to feel like her wedding was being taken away from her. I pulled my hand back. So this is my fault? I asked. I'm the bad guy because I wanted to be involved? Daniel shook his head. No, Mom, you're not the bad guy. But you also need to understand that Emily's feelings are valid. She felt overwhelmed. She felt like her boundaries weren't being respected. And instead of communicating that to you in a healthy way, she bottled it up. And then it all came out at the wedding, which was wrong. So wrong. And I should have stopped her. We sat in silence again. I tried to process what he was saying. I tried to see things from Emily's perspective. And slowly, very slowly, I began to understand. I thought about all the times I had offered advice, all the times I had made suggestions. I thought I was being helpful, but maybe I had been overstepping. Maybe I had been too involved. Maybe I had been so focused on being part of their lives that I hadn't stopped to think about what they actually needed from me. What do I do now? I asked. How do I fix this? Daniel looked at me with sad eyes. I don't know if you can fix it, Mom, but I think the first step is to give Emily space. Let her come to you when she's ready. And when she does, listen to her. Really listen. Don't try to defend yourself. Don't try to explain. Just listen. I nodded, even though the thought of giving Emily space terrified me, because space meant distance, and distance meant I might lose them both. But I didn't have a choice. I had to trust that Daniel knew what was best. I love you, Mom, Daniel said. I don't want to lose you. I want us to get through this. But it's going to take time, and it's going to take effort from everyone. I love you too, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. We talked for over 2 hours that night. We cried together. We apologized to each other. He told me about his life with Emily. He told me about their apartment. He told me about his job. And for the first time in months, I felt like I was actually connecting with my son. Not as the overbearing mother, but as someone he trusted. Someone he could be honest with. Before he left, he hugged me again. I'll call you next week, he said. And maybe we can have coffee. Just the two of us. I nodded. I'd like that, I said. And I meant it. After he left, I sat on the couch and thought about everything he had said. It was hard to hear. It was painful to accept. But it was also necessary. Because I realized that if I wanted to be part of Daniel's life, if I wanted to have a relationship with Emily, I needed to change. I needed to learn how to step back. I needed to learn how to respect their boundaries, even when it was hard. Over the next few months, Daniel and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. He called me once a week. We talked about everything and nothing. He stopped by for coffee every few weeks. We didn't talk about Emily much. It was like there was an unspoken agreement between us to avoid the subject, but I could tell he was trying. He was trying to keep me in his life while also respecting Emily's need for space. and I appreciated that. I really did. But I still hadn't spoken to Emily. I didn't know how to approach her. I didn't know if she even wanted to hear from me. I was afraid that if I reached out, I would make things worse. So I waited. I waited for a sign. I waited for an opening. I waited for her to come to me, just like Daniel had suggested. It was my sister who finally convinced me to reach out. We were having tea one afternoon about 4 months after the wedding. I was telling her about my weekly phone calls with Daniel. I was telling her how much better things were between us. But I was also telling her how much I missed being part of their lives as a couple, how much I wished I could have a relationship with Emily. Then reach out to her, my sister said. What's the worst that could happen? I laughed bitterly. She could ignore me. She could tell me she doesn't want anything to do with me. She could make me feel even worse than I already do. My sister reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Or, she said, she could surprise you. She could be ready to talk. She could be waiting for you to make the first move. I thought about it for days. I wrote and deleted dozens of text messages. I practiced what I would say. And finally, one afternoon, I gathered my courage and sent a simple text. Hi, Emily. I would like to talk if you're willing. No pressure, just when you're ready. I hit send before I could change my mind. Then I put my phone down and tried not to think about it. But to my surprise, she responded within an hour. I'd like that too. How about coffee this Saturday? I stared at the message in disbelief. She wanted to talk. She was willing to meet with me? I quickly texted back, that sounds perfect. Thank you. That Saturday, I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. I was nervous. My hands were shaking. I ordered a tea and sat down at a table by the window. I watched people walk by outside, trying to calm my racing heart. And then I saw her. Emily walked through the door, wearing jeans and a sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked nervous too. She saw me and gave a small wave. I waved back. She ordered the coffee and came to sit down. For a moment, we just sat there, looking at each other. Neither of us knew how to start. Finally, Emily spoke. Thank you for reaching out, she said. I've been wanting to talk to you, but I didn't know how. I nodded. I've been wanting to talk to you too, I said. There was another pause. Then Emily took a deep breath. I owe you an apology, she said. What I did at the wedding was wrong. I was angry and overwhelmed, and I took it out on you in the worst possible way. I humiliated you in front of everyone, and that was cruel. I'm sorry. I felt tears prick my eyes. I hadn't expected her to apologize so directly. I accept your apology, I said quietly. But I also need to apologize to you. I didn't realize I was overstepping. I didn't realize I was making you feel controlled. I thought I was helping, but I can see now that I was making things harder for you. And I'm sorry for that. Emily's eyes filled with tears too. I should have communicated better, she said. I should have told you how I was feeling instead of letting it build up. But I come from a family where my mother was very controlling. She made all my decisions for me. She told me what to wear, what to study, who to date. I never felt like I had a voice. And when we started planning the wedding, and you started offering suggestions, it triggered all those old feelings. I felt like I was losing control again. I felt like my wedding was being taken away from me. I listened carefully. I tried to understand. I'm not your mother, I said gently. I never wanted to control you. I just wanted to be close to you. I just wanted to be part of your life. Emily nodded. I know that now, she said. But in the moment, I couldn't see it. I was so caught up in my own fears and insecurities that I pushed you away, and I hurt you, and I'm truly sorry for that." We talked for over an hour. We shared our stories. We talked about our childhoods, our fears, our hopes. Emily told me about her difficult relationship with her mother. She told me about how she had spent years in therapy learning to set boundaries and stand up for herself. She told me that when she met Daniel, she was determined to create a different kind of family, a family where everyone's voice mattered, a family where boundaries were respected. I told her about my life as a single mother. I told her about losing Robert. I told her about the years of struggle and sacrifice. I told her that Daniel was my whole world and how hard it was to let him go. I told her that I was afraid of being replaced, afraid of being forgotten, afraid that once Daniel got married, there would be no room for me in his life. Emily reached across the table and took my hand. "You're not being replaced, Margaret," she said softly. "Daniel loves you so much. He talks about you all the time. He tells me stories about his childhood, about how hard you worked, about how much you sacrificed for him. He's so proud of you, and he wants you in his life. We both do. We just need to figure out how to make that work in a healthy way." I squeezed her hand. "I want that too," I said. "I want to have a relationship with you, a real one, not the one I was trying to force, but a genuine one, built on honesty and respect." Emily smiled. It was a real smile this time, not the tight, polite smile I had seen so many times before. "I'd like that," she said. We finished our coffee and made plans to have lunch the following month. Just the two of us. No Daniel, no pressure. Just two women trying to get to know each other. As we said goodbye outside the coffee shop, Emily hugged me. It was a brief hug, but it was genuine, and it gave me hope. Over the next several months, Emily and I slowly built a relationship. We had lunch once a month. We texted each other occasionally. Nothing heavy, just small talk. "How was your week? Did you see that movie? I found this great recipe." It was simple. It was low pressure. And it worked. We started to learn about each other, not as mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, but as two people who cared about the same man and wanted to make his life better. I learned that Emily loved to paint. She showed me pictures of her artwork on her phone. They were beautiful, abstract pieces with bold colors. I told her I would love to see them in person sometime. She seemed pleased. She learned that I loved gardening. I told her about my vegetable garden and my flower beds. She asked me for advice about a plant she was trying to keep alive in her apartment. I was happy to help. One day, about 8 months after the wedding, Emily called me. She sounded excited. "Margaret," she said, "Daniel and I are hosting a dinner at our apartment next Saturday. We're inviting family. My parents will be there, my sister, and we'd really love for you to come." I felt a rush of emotions: joy, relief, gratitude. "I would love to come," I said. That Saturday, I drove to their apartment with a homemade apple pie. It was Daniel's favorite. When I arrived, Emily opened the door with a big smile. "You didn't have to bring anything," she said, "but thank you. This looks amazing." She invited me in. The apartment was warm and cozy. There were candles on the table, soft music playing in the background. Daniel came over and hugged me. "I'm so glad you're here, Mom," he said. The dinner was wonderful. Emily had cooked a beautiful meal: roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, fresh rolls. Everything was delicious. We all sat around the table, eating and talking and laughing. Emily's parents were kind and welcoming. The days after the wedding were the hardest of my life. I didn't hear from Daniel. He didn't call. He didn't text. He didn't stop by. It was like I had disappeared from his life. I kept checking my phone, hoping to see his name on the screen, but there was nothing, just silence. I didn't know if he was angry with me. I didn't know if he was embarrassed. I didn't know if he even cared. And that hurt more than anything. I replayed that night over and over in my mind. I went through every conversation I had ever had with Emily, every text message, every phone call, every interaction. I looked for clues. I looked for mistakes. And maybe I found a few. Maybe I had been too eager. Maybe I had offered too many opinions. Maybe I had pushed too hard to be involved. But did that justify what she did? Did that justify humiliating me in front of everyone I loved? I didn't know. I was too hurt to think clearly. I stopped going to church. I couldn't face people. I knew they had all heard about what happened. I knew they were all talking about it. I could imagine the whispers. Did you share what happened at Daniel's wedding? His mother-in-law called her out in front of everyone. How embarrassing. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle the pity. I couldn't handle the judgment. So I stayed home. I stopped answering calls from friends. When they called to check on me, I let it go to voicemail. When they left messages asking if I was okay, I didn't respond. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to relive that night. I just wanted to be alone with my pain. My sister was the only person I allowed in. She came over every day. She brought me food, even though I barely ate. She sat with me on the couch, even when I didn't want to talk. She didn't push me. She didn't try to fix things. She just sat there, holding my hand, letting me know I wasn't alone. And honestly, she was the only reason I got through those first few weeks. I lost weight. I wasn't sleeping. I would lie in bed at night staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I kept asking myself the same questions over and over. What did I do wrong? How did I become the villain in this story? When did Emily start seeing me as the enemy? I had only wanted to be close to them. I had only wanted to be part of their lives. I had only wanted to be a good mother-in-law. But somehow, I had become the problem. Her sister was funny and outgoing. It felt like family, real family, not the kind that's perfect and polished, but the kind that's messy and real and full of love. At one point during dinner, Emily raised her glass. "I want to make a toast," she said. Everyone looked at her. "To family," she said, "to second chances, to forgiveness, and to Margaret, who has shown me what grace looks like. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for giving me the space I needed to grow. And thank you for raising such an incredible man. I'm so lucky to have you in my life." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. I felt my own tears fall. I raised my glass and clinked it with hers. "I'm lucky too," I said. After dinner, Daniel and Emily announced that they had some news. They were planning a small family reunion in the summer, a weekend at a cabin by the lake. They wanted everyone to come. Emily's family, my family, everyone together. "We want to create new memories," Emily said. "Good memories. Memories that remind us what family is really about." Everyone agreed. It sounded perfect. Looking back now, I realized that the wedding day was both the worst and the best thing that could have happened to us. It was the worst because it forced us to confront painful truths. It exposed the cracks in our relationships. It brought everything to the surface. It showed us how much hurt and misunderstanding had been building beneath the surface. But it was also the best because it gave us the opportunity to rebuild, to start fresh, to create something stronger and more honest, to build a foundation based on truth and respect rather than assumptions and expectations. I learned a lot from that experience. I learned that good intentions aren't always enough. I learned that love isn't just about being present. It's about listening. It's about asking questions. It's about making space for other people's needs and feelings, even when it's uncomfortable. I learned that relationships take work, real hard work, and that sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who challenge us the hardest. But those challenges can lead to growth. They can lead to deeper understanding. They can lead to stronger bonds. I also learned about forgiveness. Not the kind of forgiveness where you pretend nothing happened, not the kind where you sweep things under the rug and hope they go away, but the kind where you acknowledge the pain, sit with it, really feel it, and then choose to let it go. Because holding on to hurt doesn't protect you. It doesn't keep you safe. It just keeps you stuck in the past, unable to move forward. And life is too short to stay stuck.
I learned about my own shortcomings. I learned that I had been so focused on being needed that I hadn't stopped to think about what was actually helpful. I had assumed that being involved meant being helpful. But for Emily, my involvement felt like intrusion. My helpfulness felt like control. And I had been so wrapped up in my own feelings and fears that I couldn't see what I was doing to her. That was a hard lesson to learn. It was painful to admit, but it was necessary. I learned that Emily wasn't trying to take Daniel away from me. She was just trying to build her own life with him. She was trying to create a marriage where she felt seen and heard and valued. And she was trying to break cycles from her own childhood, cycles of control and manipulation. When I understood that, when I really understood it, everything changed. I stopped seeing her as the enemy. I stopped seeing her as the woman who was stealing my son. And I started seeing her as a person with her own story, her own wounds, her own struggles. Emily and I will never be best friends. We're too different for that. We have different personalities, different interests, different ways of seeing the world. But we are family. And that means something. It means we show up for each other. It means we try, even when it's hard. It means we give each other grace when we mess up. Because we will mess up. We're human. We're flawed. We make mistakes. But we're also capable of growth. We're capable of change. We're capable of love. Daniel is happy. That's what matters most to me. He's building a life with someone he loves, someone who challenges him and supports him and makes him laugh. And now I get to be a part of that life. Not in the way I originally imagined, not as the center of his universe, but in a way that's real and meaningful. I see them every few weeks. We have dinners together. We celebrate holidays together. We're planning that family reunion in the summer. And sometimes Emily and I meet for coffee or lunch, just the two of us. We talk about life, we share our thoughts, we laugh, we connect, and I feel grateful. The summer reunion came faster than I expected. We all gathered at a beautiful cabin by the lake. Emily's family was there, my sister was there, Daniel's cousins were there. It was a full house. We spent the days swimming and hiking and cooking together. We spent the evenings sitting around a bonfire, telling stories and roasting marshmallows. There was laughter, there was joy, there was peace. One evening, as the sun was setting over the lake, Emily and I found ourselves sitting on the dock together. Our feet were dangling in the water. We weren't talking, just enjoying the quiet. After a while, Emily spoke. "Thank you for giving me a chance," she said. "Thank you for not giving up on me, on us." I looked at her. Her face was soft in the golden light.
Thank you for giving me a chance too, I said. Thank you for being patient with me, for teaching me how to be a better mother-in-law. She smiled. You're a good mother, Margaret. Daniel is who he is because of you, and I'm grateful for that. I felt tears in my eyes. You're good for him, I said. You make him happy, and that's all I've ever wanted. We sat there in comfortable silence, watching the sun dip below the horizon, and I realized that this was what family was supposed to feel like. Not perfect, not without pain or struggle, but real, honest, full of forgiveness and grace. I still think about that wedding day sometimes. I still remember the sting of those words. I still remember the feeling of humiliation and heartbreak, but I don't feel anger anymore. I don't feel bitterness or resentment. I just feel thankful. Thankful that we didn't let that moment destroy us. Thankful that we chose to fight for our relationship instead of walking away. Thankful that we learned how to love each other better. Thankful that we found our way through the darkness and into the light. If there's one thing I want people to take away from my story, it's this. Relationships are complicated. Families are complicated. Blending lives and hearts and histories is messy and difficult. And sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. But that doesn't mean we give up. It doesn't mean we walk away. It means we do the hard work. We have the difficult conversations. We sit with the uncomfortable feelings. We admit when we're wrong. We forgive, even when it's hard. We grow, even when it hurts. And we keep showing up even when we don't feel like it. Because in the end, love is a choice. It's not just the feeling that comes and goes. It's a decision we make every single day to be patient, to be kind, to be understanding, to be present, to listen more than we speak, to put someone else's needs before our own, to admit our mistakes, to apologize sincerely, to forgive fully. And when we make that choice over and over again, something beautiful happens. We build something that lasts, something that's stronger than any one mistake or misunderstanding. We build family. I look at Daniel and Emily now, and I see two people who are truly building a life together. They're learning and growing. They're navigating challenges. They're creating their own traditions. And I get to be a part of that. Not as the overbearing mother-in-law I was afraid of becoming, not as the woman who tried too hard to be needed, but as someone who loves them both. Someone who supports them from a healthy distance, someone who cheers them on from the sidelines, someone who is there when they need me, but who also knows when to step back. And that's enough for me. That's more than enough. So yes, my daughter-in-law publicly insulted me at her wedding day, in front of everyone I knew and loved, in front of my family and my friends and my community. And yes, it broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. It shattered my confidence. It made me question everything about myself. But it also opened my eyes. It showed me my blind spots. It taught me how to be better. It taught me how to love better. It taught me that sometimes the hardest moments in life are the ones that lead to the greatest growth. And in the end, it brought us closer together. Not in spite of what happened, but because of it. Life has a funny way of working out like that. The moments that hurt us the most are often the ones that teach us the greatest lessons. The wounds that cut the deepest are the ones that, when healed, leave us stronger. The relationships that require the most work are the ones that become the most meaningful. And the people who challenge us the most are often the ones who help us become who we're meant to be. I don't regret anything now. Not the tears, not the pain, not the sleepless nights, not the long, hard conversations, not the moments of doubt and fear, because all of it led me here, to this place of peace, to this place of understanding, to this place of genuine love and connection, and I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. If you're meeting this and you're going through something similar, I want you to know that it's okay to feel hurt. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel confused and lost and broken. Those feelings are valid, they're real, and you need to honor them. But I also want you to know that healing is possible, forgiveness is possible, rebuilding is possible. It won't happen overnight, it won't be easy, it will take patience and humility and grace. It will take hard conversations and uncomfortable moments. It will take the willingness to see things from someone else's perspective. It will take the courage to admit when you're wrong. But it can happen. And when it does, it will be worth it. Because family is worth fighting for. Love is worth fighting for. Connection is worth fighting for. And the relationships that matter most are the ones we choose to nurture, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. So take a deep breath. Give yourself permission to feel all the feelings. Give yourself permission to grieve what was lost. Give yourself permission to be imperfect. And then, when you're ready, take that first step. Reach out. Have the conversation. Say the words you've been holding back. Admit your mistakes. Ask for forgiveness. Offer forgiveness. And trust that with time and effort and love, things can get better. They really can. That wedding day will always be a part of my story. It will always be a part of our story. It's a chapter that can't be erased or forgotten. But it's not the end. It's not even the middle. It's just one chapter in a much longer book. And the chapters that came after, the ones filled with forgiveness and growth and understanding and love, those are the ones that matter most. Those are the ones I'll carry with me forever. Those are the ones that define who we are as a family. And so, as I sit here now, in my quiet little house, looking at the photos from that family reunion, I feel grateful. So deeply grateful. Grateful for the journey, with all its twists and turns. Grateful for the lessons, both the gentle ones and the harsh ones. Grateful for the love that held us together even when it felt like we were falling apart. Grateful for Emily, who taught me what it means to respect boundaries. Grateful for Daniel, who never gave up on either of us. Grateful for my sister, who held me when I fell apart. And grateful for the family we're building together, one day at a time. Because that's what family does. We stumble. We fall. We hurt each other, sometimes deeply. We make mistakes. We say things we shouldn't say. We do things we wish we could take back. But we also forgive. We heal. We grow. We learn. We try again. And we keep moving forward. Together. Always together. Through the good days and the bad days. Through the celebrations and the heartbreaks. Through the laughter and the tears. We keep showing up. We keep choosing love. We keep choosing each other. And in the end, that's all that really matters. Not the perfect moments, not the picture-perfect family, not the fairy tale ending, but the real moments. The messy, complicated, beautiful, imperfect moments that make up a life. The moments where we choose to love even when it's hard.
The moments where we choose to forgive even when we're still hurting. The moments where we choose to stay even when it would be easier to walk away. Those moments matter. Those moments that last. So here I am, 62 years old, a widow, a mother-in-law, a woman who has made mistakes and learned from them, a woman who has been broken and put herself back together, a woman who has loved and lost and loved again. And I'm okay. More than okay. I'm at peace. I'm content. I'm grateful because I have a family. A real, messy, complicated, beautiful family. And that's everything.